Welcome, 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 everyone. So nice to have you here. It's glad to have you be a part of Bookaccino Live again. We're super excited. We've got a lot of great titles. We feel like fall's starting to be in the air. I'm still ready to glue the leaves back on the trees. I'm not really ready for summer to end. My book group was joking, and we said, why does July go so quickly and August go so quickly? They each have 31 days, and February feels like 6 months. So, yeah, I bet you all understand as well. So let's get started. Your top picks from August presentation are The River We Remember by William Kent Kruger. And I'm telling you, this is one of my 3 favorite books of the year. The others are Homecoming by Kate Morton and Lady Tan's Circle of Women by Lisa C. So this is one of my 3 top of the year. Yours was also Lisa Jewell. None of this is true. John Grisham's The Exchange. I just got a galley of that. I'm super excited about reading it. Alice Hoffman's The Invisible Hour, California Golden by Melanie Benjamin. I just posted a video. My personal pages of me speaking with Melanie about this book. We'll make sure it's up on the rest of social as well. And Jennifer Chiaravari, this is one I didn't check in advance. Jennifer Chiaravarini, Canary Girls. So those were your top picks from August, and here we go. So we also asked you how often you visit your library, and this means going to the physical building. And what we've got is that 39% of you go every week, and 29% go a few times a month, 11% once a week, 2% every 3 months, 2% twice a year, 2% once a year, 6% never. And then really down below there about 9% of the people said that they really only take out ebooks and downloadable audio. They don't go to their to their libraries. And we were really interested in that. That's one of the things we were looking to see is how many people are just doing virtual and, not going to the library at all. So thanks so much for your answers to the question. So we're going to start out with fiction. And we're going to start with Kate Atkinson's Normal Rules Don't Apply. It's coming out this week, or it's out this week. In Kate Atkinson's collection of 11 interconnected stories, nothing is quite as it seems. We meet a queen who makes a bargain she cannot keep, a secretary who watches over the life she has just lost, a lost man who bets on a horse that may or may not have spoken to him. Everything that readers love about Atkinson's novels is here. The inventiveness, the verbal felicity, the sharp observations of human nature, and the deeply satisfying emotional wallop. Now, if you've read her before, either Shrines of Gaiety or Life After Life, you know what you're getting when you look at a Kate Atkinson book. So just imagine what you're going to get with 11 interconnected stories. Next, we've got Wellness by Nathan Hill, and Nathan is the author of The Nix that some of you may have read a couple of years ago. This is on sale next week. When Jack and Elizabeth meet as college students in the 90s, the two quickly join forces and hold on tight, each eager to claim a place in Chicago's thriving underground art scene with an appreciative, kindred spirit. Fast forward 20 years to married life, and alongside the challenges of parenting, they encounter cults disguised as mindfulness support groups, polyamorous would-be suitors, Facebook wars, and something called Love Potion Number 9. For the first time, Jack and Elizabeth struggle to recognize each other, and the no longer youthful dreamers are forced to face their demons. In the process, Jack and Elizabeth must undertake separate personal excavations or risk losing the best thing in their lives, each other. Next, we've got The Wren from Enright, which is coming also next week. Nell McDara never knew her grandfather, the celebrated Irish poet Phil McDara, but his love poems seem to speak directly to her. Restless and wryly self-assured, at 22, Nell leaves her mother Carmel's ordinary home to find her own voice as a writer. As she chases obsessive love, damage, and transcendence, her grandfather's poetry seems to guide her home. Carmel knows the magic of her daddo's poetry too well. In his poems to her, Phil envisions his daughter as a bright-eyed wren ascending an escape from his hand. But it is Phil who departs, abandoning his wife and 2 young daughters. Carmel struggles to reconcile the poet with the father whose desertion scars her life, along with that of her fiercely dutiful sister, and their gentle, cancer-ridden mother. So this, you know Anna as the author of the Booker Prize as well. Next, we've got Bright Lights, Big Christmas by Mary Kay Andrews. I am reading this right now. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. It's not coming out for 2 more weeks. I am loving this book. It's going to be a Betson. It's just, completely fun. So what have we got? We've got Christmas in New York in all its splendor and glory on one corner. When fall rolls around, it's time for Carrie Tulliver to leave her family's Christmas tree farm in the mountains of North Carolina for the wilds of New York City to help her gruff older brother and his dog Queenie sell the trees at the family stand on a corner in Greenwich Village. Now, those of us who spend time in New York know exactly what these little tree stands are on the corner. It's just somebody there with a group of trees. And you realize, though, that they're trying to make a big living for the rest of the year by selling these trees on this day. So in the weeks leading up to Christmas, Carrie quickly becomes close with the charming neighbors who live near their stand. In fact, one of them gives her a key and says, "Oh, you can come over here and take a shower." And the other one says, "Oh, if you need food or you want a cup of coffee, come into my restaurant." So she really gets to know the places or people around the place. And when an elderly neighbor goes missing, Carrie will need to combine her country know-how with her newly acquired New York knowledge to protect the new friends she's come to think of as family. And complicating everything is Patrick, a single dad raising his adorable, and boy, this kid does sound adorable, dragon-loving son, Austin, on this quirky block. Carrie and Patrick's chemistry is undeniable, but what chance does this holiday romance really have? Just a real fun book, kind of book you want to slip into somebody's stocking to give for Christmas. Look at that little trailer down there. That's the trailer that they are living in on the street in New York. And they hook up to the power from the restaurant. Really, really interesting. Next, we've got Devil Makes Three by Ben Fountain. This is going to be on sale on September 26th. And on September 26th, this is going to be one of our fall preview contest titles where you can enter to win one of 5 copies of the book. So where does this take place? Haiti, 1991. When a violent coup d'etat leaves the president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, American expat Matt Amaker is forced to abandon his idyllic beachfront scuba business. That sounds pretty great. With the rise of a brutal military dictatorship and an international embargo threatening to destroy even the country's most powerful players, some are looking to gain an advantage in the chaos, and others are just looking to make it through another day. Desperate for money and survival, Matt teams up with his best friend and business partner, Alex Barriel. They set their sights on legendary shipwrecks that have been rumored to contain priceless treasures of a remote section of Haiti's southern coast. However, their ambition and exploration of the disastrous wrecks comes with a cascade of ill-fated incidents. There you've got Devil Makes Three. Then we've got The Museum of Failures by Thriddy Umberger, which is coming also on September 26th. Also, for those who are in the New York metropolitan area, I am going to be doing 3 sets of interviews at the Morristown Festival of Books. Thriddy is on one of the panels that I will be doing interviews. So if you want to come out to that event, there'll be lots of information about it on our site in the next couple of weeks. And also I'm planning to interview Thriddy as well for Bookreporter Talks too. So Remy Wadia left India for the United States long ago, carrying his resentment of his mother with him. He's now returned to Bombay to adopt a baby and to see his elderly mother for the first time in several years. Discovering that his mother is in the hospital, has stopped talking, and seems to have given up on life, he's struck with guilt for not realizing how sick she has become. His unexpected appearance and attention revives her and enables her to return to her home. But when Rennie stumbles upon an old photograph, shockingly long-held family secrets surface. As the secrets unravel and Remy's mother begins communicating again, he finds himself reevaluating his entire childhood, his relationship to his parents, and his harsh judgment of decisions and events long ago hidden from him. But most of all, he must learn to forgive others for their failures and human frailties. So there we have the Museum of Failures. Next, we've got Brooklyn Climb novel coming from Jonathan Lethem. It's coming on October 3rd. The streets of 1970s Brooklyn, a daily ritual goes down, the dance. Money is exchanged, belongings surrendered, power asserted. The promise of violence lies elsewhere, a currency itself. For these children, black, brown, and white, the street is a stage in shadow, and in the wings hide the other players: parents, cops, renovators, landlords, those who write the headlines, the histories, and the laws, those who award this neighborhood its name. The rules appear obvious at first, but in memory's prism, criminals and victims may seem to stray places. The voices of the past may seem to rise and gather as if in harmony, and then make war with one another. Street may seem to crack open and reveal what lies beneath its glimmering facade. None who live through it are ever permitted to forget. I love the period cars on the cover of this book. I'm thinking of what it was like in Brooklyn at that time. I actually went to Fordham in the Bronx during the 70s. The 70s were a really difficult time to be in the Bronx. And you can just picture what Brooklyn was like at the same time. Now we've got some historical fiction. Start out with Colette Giles Chenille. Okay, 1 second, guys. I did write this down. Chenville. Union soldier John Chenville suffered a traumatic head wound in battle, but by the time he returned home, the Civil War was over. Tragedy awaited. His beloved sister and her family had been brutally murdered. Their killer goes by many names. He fought for the North and wore a badge in the name of the law. But the man John knows as A.J. Dodd is little more than a rabid animal, slaughtering without reason or remorse, needing to be put down. John will not be deterred, not by the U.S. Marshal who threatens to arrest him for murder should he succeed, and not by Victoria Ravis, the telegraphist aiding him in his death-driven quest, yet hoping he'll choose to embrace a life with her instead. So there you've got the latest by the author of News of the World, and this is a novel of murder, loss, and vengeance. Next, we've got The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff. It's out this week from Riverhead Books. A servant girl escapes from a colonial settlement in the wilderness. She carries nothing with her but her wits, a few possessions, and the spark of God that burns hot within her. What she finds in this terra incognita is beyond the limits of her imagination and will blend her belief in every way that her own civilization has taught her. So there we've got The Vaster Wilds. And it was really interesting. They did a presentation talking about this book. You know Lauren as the author of Fates and Furies. And one of the ways she presented this was there was a video of her running through the woods. She's a big runner, and they had her running there, and she was picking up things to talk about the book as the video unfolded. It was wickedly fun. And it's once again, you realize that when you talk to Lauren, there's a whole story that's built in a world that's built inside her head. And you just have to see how it unravels itself onto the pages. Next, we've got The Armor of Light by Ken Follett, who you know as the New York Times bestselling author of Pillars of the Earth. Armor of Light is the fourth installment in Ken Follett's Kingsbridge series and the long-awaited sequel to A Column of Fire. The spinning jenny was invented in 1770, and with that, a new era of manufacturing and industry changed lives everywhere within a generation. A world filled with unrest wrestles for control over this new world order. As institutions are challenged and toppled in unprecedented fashion, ripples of change ricochet through the characters' lives as they're left to reckon with the future and a world they must rebuild from the ashes of war. So we've got The Fragile Threads from V.E. Schwab. This is on sale next week. There were once 4 worlds, each pulsing with fantastical power and connected by a single city, London, until the magic grew too fast and forced the worlds to seal their doors between them in a desperate gamble to protect their own. Only the 3 Antari are known in recent memory: Kelmaresh of Red London, Delilah Bard of Grey London, and Holland Vosig of White London. But barely a glimpse of them has been seen in the last 7 years, and a new Antari named Kosika has appeared in White London, taking the throne in Holland's absence. The young queen is willing to feed her city with blood, including her own, but her glowing religious fervor has the potential to drown it instead. And back in Red London, King Raimaresh is threatened by a rising rebellion. It's got some thrillers and mysteries. Kicking it off with Mick Herron, The Secret Hours. Mick Herron is the author of Slow Horses. And for those of you who like to watch tie-ins, movie and television tie-ins, his series has just come out recently on Apple TV Plus. I watched the first couple of episodes. They were terrific. Apple usually releases a couple at the beginning and then like one a week. So I really try to wait until they're all done at the end so I can do that binge thing and really keep the whole story in my head, because besides keeping these stories in my head, I'm also keeping the books we're doing this week and all kinds of things. So it's easier for me when the whole series has been completed. So it's on sale this week. 2 years ago, a hostile prime minister launched the Monochrome Inquiry, investigating historical overreaching by the British Secret Service. Monochrome's mission is to ferret out any misconduct by any MI5 officer and allow Griselda Fleet and Malcolm Kyle, the two civil servants seconded to the project, access to all confidential information in the service's archives. Now the administration has created Monochrome has been ousted. The investigation is a total bust, and Griselda and Malcolm are stuck watching as their career prospects are washed away. Until the eve of Monochrome's shuttering, when an MI5 case file appears without explanation. It is the buried history of a classified operation in 1994 Berlin, an operation that ended in tragedy and scandal, whose cover-up has rewritten 30 years of service history. Next, we've got Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. This is going to be a bets on selection. I read this during my week off, and it's really, really interesting. I have this thing about serial killers. How does that sound? I have a thing about serial killers. I am so interested in people who roam the country, killing women at will, and especially somebody like Ted Bundy, which is the man behind this particular story, because Ted Bundy was a guy who really killed in so many different places. And as things went along, what did we really learn about him at the same time, and how law enforcement couldn't really keep their hands on him at the same time? So Bright Young Women opens on a Saturday night in 1978, hours before a soon-to-be infamous murderer descends on a Florida sorority house with deadly results. The lives of those who survive, including the sorority president and key witness Pamela Schumacher, are forever changed. Across the country, Tina Cannon is convinced her missing friend was targeted by the man papers referred to as the all-American sex killer, and he struck again. Determined to find justice, the two join forces in their search for answers that lead to a final shocking confrontation. And one of the things addressed in this book is that Ted Bundy actually escaped twice in Colorado, from the same, I think it was from the same prison or prisons in the same area 2 times. And what's really crazy is if he was locked down, these murders would not have happened. What happened in Tallahassee, in that sorority house. So very, very interesting. And it's also told through the eyes of what was a woman who was the sorority president. And so we're seeing this whole story coming to life. And these are young women who have been traumatized, and they don't know who this guy is, and they don't know if he's coming back. Next, we've got The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. It's coming on September 19th. It's rarely a quiet day for the Thursday Murder Club. Shocking news reaches them. An old friend has been killed, and a dangerous package he was protecting has gone missing. The gang's search leads them into the antiques business, where the tricks of the trade are as old as the objects themselves. As they encounter drug dealers, art forgers, and online fraudsters, as well as heartache close to home, Elizabeth, Joyce, Ron, and Ibrahim have no idea who to trust. The body count rising, the clock ticking, and trouble firmly on their tail as their luck finally run out. And who will be the last to die? The last devil to die. Next, I've got The Intern by Michelle Campbell. I read this over the break as well. I had read Michelle's books when she wrote under the name Michelle Martinez years ago. She wrote a series then. And I'm so happy to get back to her work. I haven't read her in a while. And it's a really interesting story here. And in one of that she's written, because of her background as where she came from, her family's from Puerto Rico. And she's a family that has no connections to get her into school. So here she is, she's going to the best schools. She's going to run in the best circles, but she doesn't have the history that a lot of people in the classroom have. And this is what she brought to her character, Madison Rivera. Madison has landed the internship of a lifetime, working for Judge Catherine Conroy. But Madison has a secret that could destroy her career. Her troubled younger brother, Danny, has been arrested, and Conroy is the judge on his case. So basically, these two should never be interacting at all. Danny goes missing after accusing the judge of corruption. Madison's quest for answers brings her deep into the judge's glamorous world. Is Catherine Conroy a mentor, a victim, or a criminal? Is she trying to help Madison or use her as a pawn? And why is somebody trying to kill her? As the two women circle each other in a dangerous cat and mouse game, will they each save each other, or will betrayal leave one of them dead? It's really interesting to see how she spins the story, because the judge actually has a very different background from what she thought she had, what Madison thought she had. And that background we will get to know as readers as we get into a section of the book that is all about Catherine, and then see how these two come back and intertwine. I'm looking forward to talking to Michelle. I'm going to set up an interview with her. Next, we've got Midness Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. It's coming on October 3rd. In her small hometown of Bottom Springs, Louisiana, librarian Ruth Cornier has always felt like an outsider, even as her beloved father rains fire and brimstone warnings from the pulpit at Holy Fire Baptist. Unfortunately for Ruth, the only thing the townspeople fear more than God and the devil himself are the myths that haunt the area. Like the story of the Low Man, a vampiric figure said to steal into sinners' bedrooms and kill them on moonless nights. When a skull is found deep in the swamp next to mysterious carved symbols, Bottom Springs is thrown into an uproar, and Ruth realizes only she and Everett, an old friend with a dark past, have the power to comb the town's secret underbelly in search of a true evil. There's Midnight is the Darkest Hour. Let's do some memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. There are a lot this time of year. It's definitely the time of year where these books come out. And we're going to lead with Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. Elon Musk, just so you know, is true to Elon Musk. He has already come out and said some of the things in this book are not right. And you just knew that was going to end up happening. So let's go back a little. When Elon Musk was a kid in South Africa, he was regularly beaten by bullies, but the physical scars are minor compared to the emotional ones inflicted by his father, an engineer, rogue and charismatic fantasist. His father's impact on his psyche would linger. He developed into a tough yet vulnerable man-child, prone to abrupt Jekyll and Hyde mood swings, with an exceedingly high tolerance for risk, a craving for drama, an epic sense of mission, and a maniacal intensity that was callous and at times destructive. So we can just basically do that as, let's see, take over Twitter, call it X. Let's see, we're going to go into space. How are we going to do this? And what are we going to fund? And what are we going to do it? And can we take Tesla's money to be our own, to sit there and buy this thing called X that we now call X? Yeah, you know what we're talking about, folks. So for 2 years, Walter Isaacson shadowed Musk, attending his meetings, walking his factories with him, and spent hours interviewing him, his family, friends, co-workers, and adversaries. The result is this real revealing inside story filled with amazing tales of triumphs and turmoils that address the question, are the demons that drive Musk also what it takes to drive innovation and progress? The other thing you will learn in this book is that he has a third child with one of the women that he's fathered children with, that he believes that he wants to have a lot of children because he's bright and he should populate the earth, and the strange names his children are given. So there's a lot more to these pages, folks. Next, we've got Larry McMurtry by Tracy Dougherty. It's on sale this week. In over 40 books, a career that spans over 60 years, Larry McMurtry staked his claim as a superior chronicler of the American West and is the Great Plains' keenest witness since Wilma Cather and Wallace Stegner. Tracy Dougherty's latest book traces his origins as one of the last American writers who had direct contact with this country's pioneer traditions. It follows his astonishing career as a best-selling novelist, Pulitzer Prize winner, author of the beloved Lonesome Dove, Academy Award-winning screenwriter, a public intellectual, and a passionate bookseller. I remember reading about his bookstore, I believe it was in Texas. And when he died, like, what were they going to do with the bookstore? So there you've got his story. Got Scattershot from Bernie Toppin, Life, Music, Elton, and Me. He's half of one of the greatest creative partnerships in pop music. He's the man who wrote the lyrics for Elton John, who conceived the ideas that spawned countless hits. Together, they were a duo, a unit, an unmovable object. Their extraordinary half-century and counting creative relationship has been chronicled in biopics like 2019's Rocket Man, and even John's own autobiography, Me. But Toppin, a famously private person, has kept his own account of their adventures close to his chest until now. Scattershot allows readers to witness events unfolding from Toppin's singular perspective, sometimes front and center, sometimes from the edge, yet always described vibrantly with infectious energy that only a vivid songwriter's prose could offer. So some of these books that I'm sharing as nonfiction, remember, could also make great holiday presents as well. Okay, we've got the sixth, The Untold Story of America's First Women Astronauts by Lauren Grush. Tom and I had the pleasure of listening to a preview event where Lauren spoke about this book and the 6 astronauts and why she wanted to write this. It was so interesting because, well, let's go with the backstory here. When NASA sent astronauts to the moon in the 60s and 70s, the agency excluded women from the Corps, arguing that only military test pilots, a group then was made up exclusively of men, had the right stuff. Eventually, though, NASA recognized its blunder and opened the application process to a wider array of hopefuls, regardless of race or gender. From a candidate pool of 8,000, 6 elite women were selected in 1978. Sally Ride, Judy Resnick, Anna Fisher, Kathy Sullivan, Shannon Lucid, and Rhea Sendin. Now remember how many people's names we know when we think about astronauts. Sally Ride comes to mind. All the rest of these women do not. In the 6, Lauren Grush shows these brilliant and courageous women enduring claustrophobic and sometimes deeply sexist media attention, undergoing rigorous survival training, and preparing for years to take multi-million-dollar payloads into orbit. So really a fascinating backstory on how she wrote each of the characters. Next, we've got Astor by Anderson Cooper and Catherine Howe. This is on sale next week. From 1873, when German migrant John Jacob Astor first arrived in the United States, until 2009, when Brooke Astor's son, Anthony Marshall, was convicted of defrauding his elderly mother, the Astor name has occupied a unique place in American society. The family fortune, first made by a beaver trapping business that grew into an empire, was then amplified by holdings in Manhattan real estate. Over the ensuing generations, the Astors ruled Gilded Age New York society and inserted themselves into political and cultural life, but also suffered the most infamous loss on the Titanic. Something to interject here. Any of you who watched The Gilded Age on HBO, where they had the worst accents going, but the staging was really, really beautiful, know that getting to Astor's home was definitely one of the things that everybody wanted to be able to do, to be accepted into society. In Astor, Anderson Cooper and Catherine Howe chronicle the lives of the Astors and explore what the name has come to mean in America, offering a window onto the making of America itself. Yesterday, something did come out that there at least 39 times in this book, there are sections that feel like they are directly from someone else who wrote a book on Brooke Astor, whose name I'm forgetting. Tom may be able to remind us of it later on when we go to Q&A. But just know that there was a little bit of controversy that came up yesterday. Anderson Cooper did a great job writing with Catherine on Vanderbilt, and I loved hearing the whole story of that family. Next, we've got The Mysterious Case of Rudolph Diesel by Douglas Brunt. My husband is a huge history lover, and he found this book fascinating to the point where he was actually quoting from this book when my sister-in-law was over during the summer break. So what do we got here? September 29th, 2013. The steamship Dresden is halfway between Belgium and England. On board is one of the most famous men in the world, Rudolph Diesel, whose internal combustion engine is on the verge of revolutionizing global industry forever. But Diesel never arrives at his destination. He vanishes during the night, and headlines around the world wonder if it was an accident, suicide, or murder. In the mysterious case of Rudolph Diesel, Douglas Brunt reopens the case and provides an astonishing new conclusion about Diesel's fate. Doug told me he spent so much time researching it and being able to bring this story to light. My husband's so crazy about this book. I'm planning to read it. We're going to interview Doug, and I'm planning to have questions that are also shared by our reviewer, Lorraine Shanley, who is deep into this book as well. So just know that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Turning Pages by John Sargent, The Adventures and Misadventures of a Publisher. And John is one of the people I admire most in publishing. Till very recently, he was running Macmillan Publishers. You know them as the publishers of St. Martin's Books, Tor, FSG, Celadon, Holt, Flatiron. Probably am missing an imprint there. But more than that, I've always admired John because John always takes a stand on things. And when he thinks that things are going to hurt readers or going to hurt authors, he takes them on as a charge. And this book is really, I read it on Sunday and I was laughing as I was reading it. And I was thinking of some of the people we mutually know. But I was also sitting there saying that this guy came to publishing with such a different eye to me. Let's go. It's a well-told story of 40 years in the publishing business. For 24 of those years, John Sargent ran one of America's largest publishing companies. But rather than a chronicle straight narrative, he uses the best stories of those years to give us an intimate look inside book publishing. And weaving these stories together, he brings the readers with him through triumph and despair and a very interesting daily life. They'll meet his odd publishing family, his interesting authors, and celebrities with whom he works. He tells the tale of publishing Monica Lewinsky and recounts what it was like to have an author meeting in Buckingham Palace. He takes the reader with him as he battles with the Macmillan battles with Amazon, the Department of Justice, and President Donald Trump. John takes no prisoners whatsoever on whatever he's doing. He always has an opinion on things. I've always loved talking to him. And I'm actually going to be interviewing him tomorrow, and we'll get that interview up next week. He's got a publishing family background, which we'll reveal a lot more in the interview. But he's also got these moments where he teaches Britney Spears how to use an iPod just because he was down in the exercise room at a hotel. And they're really funny stories because he has no idea who she is. And it's just like the kind of thing that John does. The other thing is, I really want to talk to him about this because I feel like so much of New York publishing is New York publishing. It's New York based. And one of the things he did when he was growing up is he went to school in a one-room schoolhouse in Wyoming for a number of years, and then moved to a bigger schoolhouse in Wyoming. And I really feel that his being on the road in his early years gave him a bigger picture of what America was looking at, whereas a lot of people in publishing, I feel like, have a much more narrow view. So there's my story on that. We shall see what happens. Next, we've got Wandering Through Life by Donna Leone. It's coming on September 19th. A series of vignettes full of affection, irony, and good humor. Donna Leone narrates a remarkable life she feels has happened more to her than been planned. Having recently celebrated her 80th birthday, she poignantly confronts the dual challenges and pleasures of aging, complete with a brief letter dissuading those hoping to meet, Giotto Brunetti at the, wait a second, I wrote this one down. Kestora, and also suffused with music, food, and her sharp sense of humor, Wandering Through Life offers Donna Leone at her most personal. Do you love that I have these words written down? I think you should be laughing. I am. Next, we've got Going Infinite by Michael Lewis. This is coming out on October 3rd. This is about one of the characters that I really think is a character right now in business. And I just really want to know how Sam Bankman-Fried's mind works. When Michael Lewis first met Sam Bankman-Fried, he's the world's youngest billionaire and crypto's Gatsby. CEOs, celebrities, and leaders of small countries all vied for his time and cash after he catapulted practically overnight onto Forbes' billionaire list. Who was this rumpled guy in cargo shorts and limp white socks whose eyes twitched across Zoom meetings as he played video games on the side? This is also the guy who showed up in Congress wearing cargo shorts and a t-shirt, and they have not forgotten that at all. In Going After It, Michael Lewis sets out to answer this question, taking readers into the mind of Bankman-Fried, whose rise and fall offers an education in high-frequency trading, cryptocurrencies, philanthropy, bankruptcy, and the justice system. My friend Jeegan Carr and I are really, really fascinated by this guy and how he got away with as much as he did. I mean, we already had a dot-com bubble years ago. How was this guy like maneuvering around the way that he was? I do love that originally he was sent home on that he could work at his parents' home, or he could live at his parents' home until trial started, until they figured out like what he was doing there, intimidating witnesses and whatever. And the other thing I really love is that he was running this multi-billion-dollar company using QuickBooks. Should really use that as an ad, folks. Next, we've got How to Say Babylon by Sophia Sinclair. This is coming out on October 3rd, and I've had the pleasure of hearing her speak about this book twice. And it makes me really want to read it and see how she tells the story on the pages, as well as she told the story when she was talking to booksellers, librarians, and a group of other interested professionals. Throughout her career, Sophia Sinclair's father, a volatile reggae musician and militant adherent to the strict sect of Rastafari, became obsessed with her purity, in particular with the threat of what Rastas call Babylon, the immoral and corrupting influences of the Western world outside their home. He worried that womanhood would make Sophia and her sisters morally weak and impure, and believed a woman's highest virtue was her obedience. She watched her mother struggle voicelessly for years under housework and the rigidity of her father's beliefs. She increasingly used her education as a sharp tool with which to find her voice and break free. Inevitably, her rebellion clashes with her father, whose rage and paranoia explodes in increasing violence. And as her voice grows, a collision course is set between them. And one of the significances of this, these scissors on the cover is there comes a very big moment when she cuts her braids. And that is a very big deal for her to have done, and something that her father is just livid about having had happen. And what does that single moment mean for her and her role in the family and her role of looking at her father and her role in the world? So there we've got How to Say Babylon. Next, we've got In Light of All Darkness by Kim Cross. And this is the inside Polly Klaus's kidnapping and the search for America's child. I don't know how many of you remember this kidnapping. And yes, I am into serial killers. And yes, I am into these crazy kidnapping things. I will admit it. But this book really, really was something I wanted to get my hands on, because I remember my son was about 3 years old when this happened. And I was actually buying him clothes from a catalog that was in Petaluma, California. So when I actually saw this, I felt like the people who worked at this catalog company lived in this town, knew what was going on. It's a very strange relationship for me to be thinking about as my relationship to what was going on with this young girl. I know, crazy, but believe me, it was something that in the days that she was lost. So it's October 1, 1993. Polly is 12 years old. She's kidnapped at night point from her bedroom in Petaluma, California, during a sleepover with two friends. This rarest of all kidnappings, a stranger abduction from the home, triggered one of the largest manhunts in FBI history. The emotional gravity of Polly's story touched every agent, police officer, and forensic technician who worked on her case. Many of these investigators have never shared their stories until now. And you think about this, it's 30 years later. Kim Cross has written the first comprehensive account of what happened on that fateful night in October, as well as how the case forever transformed the Bureau's approach to solving crimes. It's something that's interesting to me. Also, I think it was on the nationwide news. I'm sure everybody heard about that guy who escaped jail by climbing up the side of the wall last week. He was finally found today. I think it was 13 days later. And on his treks around, I mean, talk about a book in 13 days. Where did I go? What did I do? How did I eat? He was finally captured. And one of our old chat hosts, when we used to have chats back on Bookreporter, was lived in that neighborhood. And she was telling me this morning how you were constantly worried about, like, like opening the windows. Could he show up in your backyard? Where would he be? Because while they said there was a perimeter around where he was, no one really trusted what was going on with the perimeter. I do love the way they actually have a picture of the way this guy walked out of jail, a crab walking up the sides of the jail. That's really crazy. So now we've got some November titles to look forward to. Yes, it's right around the corner. We're going to kick off with Class by Stephanie Land, a memoir of motherhood, hunger, and higher education, coming on November 7th. Stephanie stepped out to write her memoir, Maid. She never could have imagined what was to come. This book was handpicked by Barack Obama as one of the best books of 2019. It's called An Eye-Opening Journey into the Lives of the Working Poor, and it was adapted into the hit Netflix series Maid. Many of you have watched the interview that I did with Stephanie about Maid when the series was made. That's made 3 times in one sentence. Yes. Okay. It's also one of the videos that has the highest views. I think it has 30,000 views out on YouTube. So I haven't had a chance to look at that. Take a look. And what's really fun is I was one of the first people. In fact, I was the first person that interviewed Stephanie about Maid way back years ago at Book Expo. And I remember she was spending the first time I was talking about a book. We were talking about it in June. And I want to say the book was not coming out until January or something like that. So it was one of those interviews we both really remember. So Maid was a story of a house cleaner, but it was also a story about a woman with a dream. And in class, she takes us through as she finishes college and pursues her writing career. And she's still got barriers at every turn, including a Byzantine loan system, not enough money for food, navigating the judgments of professors and fellow students who didn't understand the demands of attending college while under the poverty line. And she finds a way to survive once again. And it paints an intimate and heartbreaking portrait of motherhood as it converges and often conflicts with personal desire and professional ambition. Looking forward to reading it and catching up with Steph again. Next, we've got The Manor House by Gilly McMillan, coming on November 7th. Childhood sweethearts Nicole and Tom are a normal, loving couple till a massive lottery win changes their lives overnight. Soon, they've moved into a custom-built, state-of-the-art glass barn on the stunning grounds of Lane Cott Manor in Gloucestershire. They have fancy cars, expensive hobbies, an exclusive lifestyle they never could have imagined. But this dream world quickly turns into a nightmare when Tom is found dead in the swimming pool. Was his death a tragic accident or something worse? So The Manor House, be careful what you wish for. Looking forward to reading this one too. Resurrection Walk, A Lincoln Lawyer by Michael Connolly. So this is coming on November 7th. And I'm going to give you a little bit of I've got to do a little bit of thinking on this one. Defense attorney Mickey Howe is back, taking the long shot cases where the chances of winning are 1 in a million. After getting a wrongfully convicted man out of prison, he is inundated with pleas from incarcerated people claiming innocence. He enlists his half-brother, retired LAPD detective Harry Bosch, to weed through the letters, knowing most of the claims will be false. Bosch pulls a needle from a haystack, a woman in prison for killing her husband, a sheriff's deputy who still maintains her innocence. Bosch reviews the case and sees elements that don't add up, and a sheriff's department intent on bringing quick justice in the killing of one of their own. So now Howe has an uphill battle in court. The path for both lawyer and investigator is fraught with danger from those who don't want the case reopened and will stop at nothing to keep the Howe-Bosch dream team from finding the truth. Now, what's fun about this book, if you watch as much television as I watch, besides being an avid reader, is we've got the Mickey Howe series on Netflix. I believe we're in season 2. And we've got the Bosch series on Amazon Prime. So between these 2 series, you're able to see what these characters look like, even though we are always saying that the characters should just be in our heads. No. We now have new links of the way these people look. Been watching Bosch for years. I've been now watching Mickey Howe for a while. And, before Mickey Howe was played by the actor who he's played by now, he was played by Matthew McConaughey in another movie. So the new Mickey Howe is much better, though. But also, Michael Connolly taught me something when I interviewed him out at the Hamptons Whodunit back in April. Okay, anybody who's watched Bosch or knows about Bosch, there's a beautiful house on top of the hill, which is where Bosch lives. And what's really interesting about that house that's way up on the hill is that it's really hard to shoot at because there's this windy road that goes up there. And you know that anybody who shoots, that's the last thing they want to be dealing with, is getting the equipment up there. And then you're going to be up there all day and you need everybody to be quiet. So Michael tells the story about how they paid everybody on the block to be quiet that day. But one guy decided to turn on the leaf blower in his garage and they had to give him more money so he would be quiet during the day. And also on these long series, if you watch the credits like I do, there are often more than one director on the show. There's more than one person that comes in. So when they're shooting Botch, they often have 4 people that are going in to shoot these different episodes of the series. So that means that you've got to get all 4 directors to be available on the same day to go up and shoot at that house on the top of the road and make sure everybody's quiet and move things in and out, which you'll probably try to do over a day or 2. So there's your little bit of background of if you watch TV and you also read, there's your story. You can share that with your friends. They should owe you a drink for that one. Next, we've got The Wishing Bridge by Viola Shipman coming on November 7th. Once the hottest mergers and acquisition executive in the country, Henrietta Wegner sees the ambitious and impossibly young up-and-comers gunning for her job. When Henry's boss makes it clear that she'll be starting the new year unemployed unless she can close a big deal before the holidays, she impulsively tells him that she can convince her aging parents to sell Wegner's, their iconic Christmas store, to a massive soulless corporation. Home for the holidays has typically meant perfunctory 24-hour visit for her before driving back to Detroit. So turning up at Wegner's offices in early December raises some eyebrows, from her delighted, if puzzled, parents to her suspicious brother and curious childhood friends. But as Henry fields impatient texts from her boss while reconnecting with the magic of the store and the warmth of her hometown, what sounded great in the boardroom begins to lose its luster in real life. Next, we've got The Little Liar from Mitch Albom coming on November 14th. 11-year-old Nico Crispus never told a lie. When the Nazis invade his home in Salonika, Greece, the trustworthy boy is discovered by a German officer who offers him a chance to save his family. All he has to do is convince his fellow Jewish residents to board trains heading to new homes where they're promised jobs and safety. Unaware that this is all a cruel ruse, the innocent boy goes to the station platform every day and reassures the passengers that the journey is safe. But when the final train is at the station, Nico sees his family being loaded onto a large boxcar, crowded with other neighbors. And only after it is too late does he discover that he helped send the people he loved and all the others to their doom at Auschwitz. And he never tells the truth again. So there we've got The Little Liar. And we've got The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. Love Nita Prose. Love her book, The Maid. It was a Bets On selection. It was a Good Morning America selection when it came out. I guess it was 2 years ago. Had the pleasure of interviewing her twice, but once virtually and once at the Morristown Festival of Books. She's got a new book coming out November 28th. I want you to take note of it. It's a Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So anybody who's doing shopping before Thanksgiving, be sure to leave some moolah for this one. So Molly Gray is not like everyone else. With her flair for cleaning and proper etiquette, those who've met Molly in the original book, The Maid, know exactly what we're talking about. She's risen through the ranks of the glorious 5-star Regency Grand Hotel to become the esteemed head maid. But just as her life reaches a pinnacle state of perfection, her world is turned upside down when J.D. Grimthorpe, the world-renowned mystery author, drops dead on the hotel's tea room floor. When Detective Stark, Molly's old foe, investigates the author's unexpected demise, it becomes clear his death was murder most foul. Suspects abound, and everyone wants to know who killed J.D. Grimthorpe. As a high-profile death threatens the hotel's pristine reputation, Molly knows that she alone holds the key to unlocking the killer's identity, but that key is buried deep in her past, as long ago she knew J.D. Grimthorpe. So you know this is going to be a fun book. Drop that key to the room. Okay, so we got some notable September paperback releases. I got Lucy by the Sea by Elizabeth Strout, Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan, The Matchmaker's Gift by Linda Cohen Leugman, The Mitford Affair by Marie Benedict, which was a Bets On selection earlier this year. Frederick Bachman's The Winners. Mad Honey actually was a Bets On selection as well. It was out a year ago. Cormac McCarthy's The Passenger and Cormac McCarthy's Stella Maris. Those two books go together. So thinking gifts, you can think those two together. Thinking good reading, read these others. I've got 28 Bets On selections so far, and there were many more that came over the holiday break. I really had a great time reading. Those of you who read the newsletter saw the books that I read at the top of the screen. And here are the recent Book Reporter Talks to interviews. Our ever industrious editorial director, Tom Donadio, was terrific and dropped in Happiness Falls that we just got up yesterday. Great time talking to Angie Kim about that book, which is a Barnes & Noble Book Club selection for the month. It's the GMA pick, and it is also a Book of the Month Club selection. California Golden, great time talking about that book, and Surfing with Melanie Benjamin. It is not a typical Melanie Benjamin book, but it's a terrific book. And I really enjoyed reading it for the life about surfing in the 50s and 60s and what means for women today. Shira LaPena, I call her the queen of the one sit read. The Connollys of County Down by Tracy Lang, who I've interviewed for the first time, looking forward to doing again. I'm back with Naomi Hirahara talking about Evergreen, which is a sequel, but you can read it by itself, to Clark and Division. Okay, Mad Honey. Got another story here. It's your What's Your Book Group Reading prize this month. 3 groups of 12 will be entered to win copies of Mad Honey, as long as you go out to the site and tell us what your book group is reading this month. Your book group, if it's reading Mad Honey, you can tell us it's Mad Honey, but you're really supposed to be telling us what your group is reading. So if it is reading this, fine, but if not, my group read this. We had the most interesting discussion. It's one of those books that we bring up again and again when we get together to meet. Really interesting story. So highly recommend, if you want a winner for your club, get out there now. Okay, so join us for a special Bookaccino Live evening event. Yes, we're doing this in the evening. And this is where you tell all your friends who work during the day and can't cheat and go to Zoom that this is going to be happening next Wednesday, September 20th at 8 o'clock in the evening. We did a summer event like this and people loved it so much that we said, okay, we'll do a fall preview in the evening as well. So sign up for this is available on Book Reporter, Reading Group Guides, and those who are attending live, you'll be getting follow-up about this later on today as well. And also, 2 weeks from tonight, Alice Elliott Dark is going to be discussing Fellowship Point, which was a Bets On pick. It's now out in paperback. If you've got questions that you want to ask Alice about this fabulous book, I absolutely love this. It was a Bets On last year. And one of the reasons we announced this one so far in advance is it's a big book, and we wanted to give you time to read it. So you've known about this book being a pick since May. So let's get on it, folks. If you haven't finished the last couple of pages, it's time to read on. You got 2 weeks. If you haven't picked it up yet, speed read. You're really going to want to be part of this discussion. So we've got that coming up as well. And our next Bookaccino Live preview event will be with books releasing from October 10th through October 31st, and a peek ahead at November and December. And it's going to be on Wednesday, October 11th. And I just want you to know you are in good hands with Tom Donadio, because he has done all the thinking through for us that how we're going to do this and scope ahead going into November and December. We will do a Bookaccino Live in October. We will do one in November. We will not do one in December, but we've got some other tricks up our sleeve for you in December. So to everybody, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we absolutely love having you be part of Bookaccino Live.